you want to be around them. You enjoy their company. It's like you and your brother like ribbing each other and fucking around. Like it's a similar kind of vibe. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what else is a similar kind of vibe?
What's that?
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to Pixel. My name is Kevin. With me, as always, is Phil. On today's show, we are continuing on King's Quest. Yes. We're in the we're real sorrowful now.
We're super sorrowful. So sorrowful.
So sorrowful. And you know what? You know what would be a great way to make us less sorrowful is if you went to patreon.com/pixelitpod. Check us out there. You could follow us for free, which is great. You know, just great way to know what's up.
I like the sound of that.
$1 gets you access to blog posts. $5 gets you access to ad-free episodes. And the bonus episode we're recording. We recorded a big bonus episode today. We got into the stand-up theories behind stand-up comedy. And
I know you guys were waiting to hear that one. Go buy Phil's comedy album. It's still for sale. Don't buy Phil's comedy album. How dare you?
It hasn't
aged well.
Has it aged well? Probably not. It was
probably not. All the more reason to buy it. Hold me accountable, people. Hold me accountable. It's not bad. There's some light, cheerful misogyny in it.
Cheerful misogyny.
Cheerful misogyny.
Yeah.
Which I thought I was one of those comedians who was charming enough to get away with it, and I think to some people I was, and others I
it really worked when you saw Phil in person and you could see him on stage with a cigarette in it between his fingers, and he was like sweating the gin out. You could just see the gin pouring from Phil's.
You could. You remember the Elvis movie, that terrible Elvis movie that came out, and at the end,
what?
The end of it, they made the horrible mistake of showing actual clips of late era Elvis singing Unchained Melody, which was the biggest mistake ever, because that's what he was just leaned over, and you're still like, you can't. He's electrifying. He's like just the most amazing entertainer, and I'm not trying to compare myself to him in that sense, but I've seen videos of myself in my heyday as a comedian, and just like you said, I'm just smoking and sweating chemicals, and I'm just like, this is late era Elvis shit. Like, I'm gonna die. Like, oh my god.
God. $10 gets your name shouted out in the episode. So to that end, I want to shout out Jesus Loves You, Kyle Seaman, Ruthless Mutter, Middle of Things, Sigma Sal, Chet Beaks, Dema Thick, and Friendly Friend. Thank you for being a friend. So I'm glad. You know what? I'm glad we talked stand-up comedy.
I am too. It's been a long time since I've done that. So
it's been a long time. Yeah. So you know what? Why don't we go ahead and put this body in the marsh and tell me about the adventures of King Graham as he continues on his merry way through some really rough. This dude is having some rough encounters.
He's getting the shit kicked out of him. This is not all right. Yeah. So Graham is not having a good time.
Not having a good day
at this point.
When I tell you to dump a body in the marsh, you dump him in the marsh.
We left off where King Graham and his bard companion Shallan had to kind of negotiate their way around being eaten by spiders, these giant spiders, and basically it came down to the fact that Shallan sang them a lovely tune, and they were like, "Oh, that's nice," but B, they were full from eating imps. So it's like, so part of it was like, we're doing you a favor. The other part, though, was just something they couldn't have controlled if they tried. So that's terrifying. And they go ahead and they go to sleep. Now we start on chapter 11, where they've woken up. And at this point, you figure the spiders are gone. The spiders are not gone.
Spiders are never gone.
No, they're not. I saw a tweet the other day that said the hardest part about insomnia is eating all those spiders on purpose. And It's a good joke. It's a good joke.
It's a good joke.
It's a good joke. And this is a similar kind of vibe. They're just there, and they lovingly, quote unquote, offer them some grapes. They literally
Here's grapes.
It's like they just show up and they're like, hey, here's some grapes, and they're like, oh, that's
thanks for the grapes.
The spiders are like, we've seen you guys eat these things. We know you eat these. And he's, oh yeah. Oh,
we
yum. Do. It's actually really damn funny. And here's the thing. They eat the grapes and they're described as sweet with a certain bitterness to them, which I think sends up some red flags. I think that's a little obvious. However, I'm just going to go ahead and spoiler alert. By the time we get to 2/3 of the way through this book, that has nothing happens. Nothing happens with the bitterness from these grapes. So I'm like, okay, I don't know if they're like saving that or
what were you thinking it was going to be?
That it was like one little trick for them to like some sort of like, what do you call it? Sedative or something like that for them to try and eat, and they still, their troubles are not over. So, but then again, that's dumb because why would the spiders do that? They could just eaten them in their sleep.
As someone who would like to be a vintner someday, perhaps. What's the French word? Terroir.
Terroir. Yeah.
Terroir. What kind of grapes are these?
I mean, they could be any number of grapes, but yeah, if you're talking about a little bitterness, I'd say maybe a Nebbiolo.
Okay.
Which make wonderful Italian reds, which are big, bold, just huge reds, but are also really well known for their tannic bitterness.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like the table wine that you would get at an Italian restaurant or something like that.
No, this is stuff that, well, I mean, it could be. It depends on the region, but these are the same grapes that are used in Barolo and Barbaresco, which fetch some of the highest prices of wines in the world. In fact, like if you wanted to buy an acre of land in the Barolo region, it's like $2 to $3 million for a single acre. Yeah.
Just to be able terroir. to grow some of those grapes and sell some of that wine, because an acre, you're not making much. You're not making
you are not making a ton of that, and so yeah, it's wild. So that's where my brain went immediately. I'm going to stick with that Nebbiolo grapes. All right, if any of you fuckers come for me with this, then come correct. I want to hear
correct. He correct. Called there were Nebbiolo grapes offered by the spiders.
Yes, spider. I'm gonna make a Nebbiolo based wine called Spider Wine.
Spider Wine. Yes.
Spider Wine.
Yes.
Delicious. Truly delicious. So we get the journey continues. Graham points out that Shallan is barely wearing anything at all. He actually we get a kind of a nothing at all moments because he's just because he's complaining about the cold, and so Graham gives him his cloak to help him against. And as you might remember from the last episode, Graham has put on like 19 layers. This will come into
weapons
play.
Porn, but for layers.
Exactly, and this will come into play as the story goes along, which I find to be really, really funny, because one of the things that we're going to see that this particular King's Quest book does well, in my opinion, is actually recreating quests and goals and challenges in King's Quest, and frankly most point and click games, without it being too fetch questy, and him having the layers of clothing is
and I think that was the problem with the first book, where it was like, I got this random item. Oh, this random item solved this puzzle. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It doesn't. So this book does a lot better with that. We come to a farmhouse. There's a woman there. They basically, ask for food and shelter, and Shallan basically, offers to sing for their supper. It's pretty cool. And the woman, and it's an older woman, and they're listening to him sing and all that stuff. And these three brothers. I assumed. I don't remember. Did they ever say that they're brothers or something like that, or just they're just pals?
I think they're brother. Like it's real Newhart show energy.
Yes,
I'm Larry.
Yes.
This is my color. Daryl, and Daryl. That's right.
Yes, yeah. It's a similar vibe. It's a similar vibe. The gag is that it's what is it? Here we go. Here's a quote for it. Graham is asking them if they've seen these imps. So the first one says, "I don't think so. You see anything, Hogshead?" "Nope," said Hogshead. "How about you, Ram's Quarter?" "Nope," said Ram's Quarter. "How about you, Lamb's Foot?" "Nope," said the fourth. Oh, it's four guys, not three. Fourth and last. And this happens several times. And this to me is very King's Quest, because it's cute and it's just annoying enough that while reading, I was unconsciously trying to click through the dialogue.
Right.
I love King's Quest. I adore that franchise, but they would have these kind of long-winded jokes like this that you're like, Jesus Christ, guys, we have to move on.
My name's Larry. This is my brother Daryl. This is my other brother Daryl.
Right. Yeah. Oh God, we have to move on. It's so I liked this point because we once again, it's Kenyon really knows the source material here, and I got a kick out of that. So they get a space in the barn and have some stew, and everything seems good. Finally, thank God for everyone, and they fall asleep. Probably nothing comes of it, right? Chapter 12. Graham wakes up to being kidnapped. That's basically he wakes up to this quartet and the woman tying him up and dragging him out. They're doing the same thing with Sherelle, and they basically are. It's really weird. They're talking about feeding them to this thing called the laburnum.
Yep.
We do not know what they don't seem to know what the laburnum is. But they know that the laburnum causes things to happen.
They need to feed them. Yeah, it wrecked their crop. It did all this other stuff. Yeah.
If the last time they didn't feed it, it wrecked the crop, all that stuff. So they're taken to this well, basically, and drop down. You're waiting for this dramatic entrance of whatever the laburnum is, and they don't show up. So they go, well, fuck it. We're fulfilling our part of the bargain. Throw them in there. They'll get to them. So they are dropped down this well. We come to chapter 13. Graham and Shallan are basically in this kind of labyrinthine sewer system almost. It's like a cavern system. They can't see shit. Graham can't. He's behind Shallan, so he has to kind of like get from him the story of what the hell's going on. Finally, they find what appear to be the laburnum, and they're like 80s cereal mascots. Like they've got these long skinny legs. They say they don't have a head. It's just their head and their shoulders they're a big geometric block.
I imagine them as like, what are the porgs from Star Wars?
Sure. I
kind of picture them as like large versions of that.
Oh, that's a good. Okay. Yeah, I like that. That. That works.
Yeah.
So at first they're like, well, these guys are kind of cute. What's the big deal? And they're like, oh yeah. And they seem kind of friendly, and they're like leading them along. And
they're like,
at one point,
the laburnum are like, come with us. And you're like, they're like, okay.
Okie doke. And they follow them. And, it's in the twist of the century, they end up in this, what can only be described as like an underground town of these little things. They're all different colors and shapes and sizes. And they're like, oh, well, that's charming. And then they notice that all the furniture they're sitting on, the cups they're drinking out of, the bowls, the plates are all made out of human bone.
Bone.
And they're like, oh, I see. And one of them had like patted Graham on the stomach, like approvingly. It was like, I'm thinking like, I'm thinking like Jawa's like, oh, Dee Dee, like, kind of tap, tap, tap. It's just like, woo, and just really excited. And they go, oh shit. And so they run, like they just turn around the way they came. And
They're like, oh yeah, this is bad. This is not good.
We are going to be eaten.
We are going to die.
That is absolutely what's going to happen today unless we run. And so they run. In a moment of stark heroism, our bard says that he's like, just go, I'll hold them off. I'll distract them for a little while. And they're little things that, by the way, they're like 2 feet tall. So it's not like the most intimidating or scary thing, but 100, venomous ducks will still get a bite in.
Yeah.
And so the bard is like, I'll take care of it. You gotta run. So Graham runs, and as far as he knows, Shallan he'll never see him again. And finally, the chapter ends with Graham making his way out of the cavern and out to basically the foothills of the Glass Mountains. And that's the end of that chapter.
Which we'll find out are literally glass.
Literally glass. I really liked that touch. I think they did a really good job with that. But we'll get there. So Graham starts up the Glass Mountains, and he comes upon the imps. He sees them. So he tries the old Ben Gunn from Treasure Island move of shouting from the sides where they can't see him and claiming, I've got an army here and we'll fuck you up if you don't hand over the fairy dame, just like in Treasure Island. Right. And he tries that out, and they're really kind of unconvinced. And so he ends up, so the queen, the fairy queen, hearing like maybe, this is my chance to be saved, starts singing this song that is clearly putting them to sleep, knocking them out. She casts sleep. And
she casts sleep. It's somewhat effective.
Yes, exactly. It's somewhat effective. And Graham kind of starts tiptoeing his way down to rescue her. But as he gets there, excuse me, Kudzku, like the nasty imp, the one that kidnapped her in the first
place. The one from the very beginning. Yeah,
exactly. Is it Kudzu or Kuzgu? Kuzgu. I want to make sure I get that right. Kuzgu kind of wallops him. It's kind of shocking. They get into this fight, and Kuzgu just like kind of beats his ass, and Graham is scared.
It makes sense because sleep works on, you roll for the amount of hit points that sleep works on, and all the other imps had a lower amount of hit points. And Kuzco, because he's
a character,
he's a level up or whatever from the other imps. Therefore, sleep was not as effective on him.
Right, exactly. So he got the saving throw a lot easier than his goons.
Yes, totally.
So Graham is freaked out by how kind of handily he's being trounced by this little guy. There is some interesting stuff in there where he's like, oh, he's shorter than me, but he could still fuck me up, which I got a kick out of. I was like, that's a good lesson to learn. Good lesson. So Graham does his best impression of brave Sir Robin and runs away, and just gets the fuck out of Dodge. And that's actually how our chapter ends. Brave Sir Graham just ran away.
He's like, I'm leaving.
Run away. Poor Graham. So we get to the next chapter, which is told from the point of view of the fairy queen. She is being carried through the mountains, and we kind of deal with her level of despair because she really thought she was saved at that point. Graham let her down, breaks the heart. She's being carried through the mountains still. They go through this hidden passage in this black rock. It's a secret door, basically.
Right.
And she realizes they're going to the Sorrowful Court, and they mention that it's being run by something called Dunstan the Giant. And so I guess something about that makes her go, oh shit, I really need to make sure that I get covered here. And so she decides she's going to start leaving kind of breadcrumbs for Graham.
She's like grabbing like a bush and imparting some magic on it so that it's like, it grows basically because everything is dead here.
Exactly. Everything around there is dead, and there's no everything that's alive is like underneath 14 feet of snow essentially. So it's all hidden. So that's what she's going to do to help herself out. Chapter 16. I see. Where are those notes? There they are. Graham is trying to follow the imps. And he can't because, as Kevin mentioned earlier, the landscape is covered in glass. It is literally broken glass everywhere. This naturally occurring glass, and it's like cutting at his feet, and he cannot move. There's no way he can actually go forward. Classic King's Quest kind of a situation.
Yeah.
You can't go any further. You can't go past this part of the level.
And I was actually thinking about like that. Actually, it's something that you could hypothetically have if you had like the origins of it would be like, oh, there is these massive sand dunes.
Oh yeah, desert kind of thing.
Like a desert, massive sand dune, and then there's a volcanic eruption.
Aren't there places in the desert that are glass because like lightning striking or something?
Lightning striking. Actually, there's a lot of places. I want to say during the first Iraq War, Saddam set fire to the oil fields.
Oh, yeah.
So
I bet that left behind a lot of glass.
Yeah, they turned to glass. Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah. So that's what he's dealing with. It is very cool to think about the idea that could happen. That could actually be a thing. But for Graham, it's a new puzzle to solve.
Yep.
So he is he goes back the way he came. He's trying to find food at this point. He's just because it just doesn't let up on Graham. He is starving to death at this point. He hasn't eaten in days, and he finds a stream he can drink from. So there's that, but he's having real trouble finding food. And he happens upon a gnome who offers him like, come on over to my place and we'll eat. And my wife, you'll meet her and everything like that. And the gnome is a cobbler, and his wife is a seamstress. And so he gets into their little gnome hole. Basically they talk a lot about how he's way too big for it.
Gnome hole.
Gnome hole doesn't have quite the gist that Hobbit hole has, does it? It doesn't. It's not quite as charming.
Yeah. Hobbit hole, you can be like, okay, but gnome hole.
Gnome hole. Yeah, there's something about that. Oh, that is a shame.
It leaves its flavor in the mouth.
Yeah. That's why they have those pointy hats to, it helps ease into the gnome hole.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Dilates.
Yeah. Just it's slowly worrying it open, little by little. Relax. Talk to it when you want to come.
Oh God, David the gnome.
What happened to you, David? Oh wait, you turned into a tree.
You turned into a tree.
Poor David the gnome.
Poor David.
I loved that show. So we get a moment where they're explaining like, yeah, you're not going to be able to go any further because of the glass. You need these special boots and gloves that the way he describes it'll make you stick to the ground like a fly sticks to the wall, which is an interesting way of putting it. Because at first you think he's going to be like Spider-Man, like climbing walls and shit, but no, they're it's +5 against glass damage.
Yeah, exactly. Basically. He allows him to walk on the glass without getting cut.
Yeah. So he stays with them for like 4 days while, and they ask, they're like, okay, if you give us like your clothes are really finely tailored. If you give us, I think he ends up trading them like 2 shirts and something like that for these boots and gloves. And they're like, it's going to take a few days. And on top of that, it's like crazy storming out there. And so it's just, he can't go anywhere for a little while.
Yeah.
We come to the next chapter, and that's where we're at in the next chapter. He stays with the gnomes for 4 days. He's constantly apologizing for he's just taking up so much room.
So big. He's so huge. Big, and the hole is so small. Yeah.
That's a problem a lot of gnomes have.
Yeah.
A lot of us have been there. And so eventually he leaves with the pair of boots and the gloves, which do in fact work. So now he's got access to this whole new level. He finds a pink flower that's kind of like, it's that fucking heroic flower sticking its head between the sidewalk gravel, but it's a snow. And he realizes that the queen is leaving some clues for him, like, so he knows he's on the right track.
Right.
He finds a valley and makes his way down, and then of course gets stuck in a snowstorm. And when the chapter ends, he has basically just sat his ass down because he's trying to find a place to set up camp, and there's nothing. And so he basically just lays down in the snow and lets it kind of consume him. He does manage to build a fire, and as we start in chapter 18, he wakes up from the sound of one of the logs kind of like popping. And he's like, oh shit, if I had slept anymore, I probably would have frozen to death out here.
Right.
It would have been that was a very real possibility at that point. So he's trying to keep the fire going. There's hardly any wood or vegetation at all for him to use. He's got this, he like literally describes him using a twig that's about as big around as his pinky. So he's got this green twig that's tiny little fire. And when you know it, he while he's out foraging for some food, he slips on some ice, cracks his skull. Now
Knocked
normally, knocked out. Now normally in the game, this is where you'd get the Graham, you're falling for us, kind of like ending moment, where
right.
the narrators, and you have to start over.
You have to like reload, Yeah.
Hopefully you've been save scumming. If you're not, what are you doing? So he's woken up a giant. He is being dragged by the leg by a giant. He's trying to talk to the giant. The giant kind of like will look over his shoulder at him like he's the dumbest human being alive and just keeps dragging
The way
him.
that the giant was described, though, in my head, the image was horrifying.
Yes.
Because he's got this big old head, but the face it's like the eyes and the nose are like really tiny. But
it said that they could all fit.
Yeah,
it says his eyes, his nose, his ears could all fit in a space the size of Graham's palm.
Right.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
I loved that detail.
Yeah. It's like the guy from Dick Tracy. Was it Flat Top? No, Little Face.
Hold on. I'm going to look it up.
Little Face from...
Littleface. Oh yeah, Littleface. Jesus Christ. How did I forget about this thing? I think my brain tried to force me to forget this. The fucking, that movie was not a good movie, but the makeup effects they did for these bad guys.
Yeah. I don't know why. I love this movie so much just because of the something about the way that the characters that they created based on the the comic strip it was really neat. And it's funny because they end up killing off a bunch of the guys right at the beginning. They're playing poker and they all get killed off. That's get whacked. Little Face being one of them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and the brow.
Yeah. It's just the choice, because it's such an old comic and those villains are so over the top in their art design that makes sense for a comic strip. But the fact that they chose to let's just keep going with that exact look. Yeah. That's insanity to me. And it produced some serious nightmare fuel, but it's really impressive at the same time.
It's amazing. And it's so cool. It's like something that you see happens a lot in anime, with very distinctive looking characters, and the idea that they were like, yeah, we're not gonna fucking like make it realistic. We're gonna make these characters look exactly like they did in the comic. Yeah. Flat Top and Itchy.
I get a kick out of that. Now. I think at the time it made me scream my head off.
Yeah.
So damn, I did not have us talking about Dick Tracy on my bingo card today.
And I got to tell you, the final gunfight between the cops and the mobsters and Dick Tracy is actually an amazing sequence. as basically the mobsters are trying to get out of the hideout and the cops are just unloading on them.
The last time I saw this was a very long time ago. So
give it a watch.
I might have to give it another watch.
I think it gets, I mean, it's not particularly like the plot itself is not written well, and Madonna's not a great actress.
Well, no.
But
no,
it's got some, and just in terms of visual, like,
right,
it's pretty amazing.
It's meant to look like a comic book. They were doing that before Sin City did that.
Yeah, no, it's well before Sin City, and you know it's from the mind of Warren Beatty.
I know that was that was his baby, right? It was his baby. Some cash in this thing.
He sure did, and he still does a weird special.
That's right. Oh, it's like Christmas time or something. Like he always does something
it's like
that?
Late night. He just does it so that he can retain the rights to Dick Tracy.
That's so funny. I love that.
Man hasn't been in a movie in like 20 years, but
never underestimate spite. Just never do it for anything, really.
For anything at all.
For anything. So he's yeah, it is a horrifying design that this thing, because you're right. His mouth is enormous, tiny eyes, nose, and all that stuff in a great big head. So he finds out that he is being dragged to the sorrowful court. How lucky is that?
Yeah.
Because he was seriously on the verge of giving up. He was like, oh my God, I need to go home. He did have a moment where he was like, I seriously need to go home. My family is fucked. And, but if I don't, if I do go home, they might be really fucked. And it's a whole thing for him. So this worked out really well. It's Deus Ex, I don't know, Gianta, the God Giant, Giant Ex Machina, I guess makes more sense. So the giant drags him in there. He makes his way in, and he's tied up by the ankles, and he is hung upside down by the ankles in this giant pantry. The imp version of Louis the chef from The Little Mermaid pops in, sings les poissons, and by the way, your dinner. We are going to turn you into food. And this is a common theme. Graham's life has been threatened specifically by ingestion so many times,
so often
in this book.
It's like, why would you ever leave Daventry?
No, I think I understand why he gets so frustrated when he has to go on one of these quests.
Yeah.
It looks like it's really frustrating.
Why is it him on the quest? Why isn't there a dude that is very suited?
Right. As a king, you're gonna have a knight or something who goes out and does that shit for you.
But no,
and the only thing he gets in response is he gets to tell everyone that your wife is his girlfriend.
Yeah,
and that's it. But that's the extent of it. It was fucking chivalry shit was weird, man.
Yeah, weird stuff.
It was really weird.
Yeah.
So we cut to chapter 19. We get this is where the imp's singing les poissons, and Graham is chatting with him, trying to get him to hold off as long as he possibly could, and he says something like, would it help if I told you I was a king? And the imp gets super excited. Yeah. And he's like, oh, this is perfect. That's how he sounds in my mind now. This is perfect because as a king, you will be very fat and delicious,
filled with creme and honeyed cakes.
Yes, it'll be delicious.
Those cakes, not cocks.
Yeah. Thank you. That's important. But this is our what's this guy's name? This imp's name? It's Zuzek.
Zuzek.
And Zuzek. This is where Zuzek quite literally says, "Eat the rich." It is a lovely moment.
Good moment.
It's a good moment.
Power to Zuzek. I think he's got something.
I think he's on to something. A lot of people say the words. Very few are actually willing to push through with it on the level that this delightful imp is.
Yeah.
So we stand an actual cannibalistic, murderous, communist imp.
Yep.
Love it. So Graham escapes. He kind of rocks back and forth, grabs a cleaver, cuts his way through, and the Zuzek is describing to him, "We eat humans raw. It's the sauce. The sauce makes the meal."
He's like, we dip them raw into the sauce, and the sauce is and
he's working on the sauce. The sauce is the big deal here, and basically, and again, this is all very King's Quest game, or this is exactly how this would go down. He's not going to kill his tormentor. It's not that kind of a game. He's not that kind of a hero. So instead, he knocks over the cauldron that Zuzek has been making the sauce in, knocks it over, ruins all of his hard work, and Zuzek just collapses into a muttering, heartbroken pile, muttering about his sauce.
That would be Graham, too,
I get it. I have been actually making a lot of sauces lately. And there's a lot of work that goes into it, man. Have you ever made a gravy? Gravy
it's not easy.
It's not the easiest thing in the world, man. Make a bechamel and it sounds like this guy is working extra hard on it. So I sympathize. I really do.
Yeah.
Graham,
my heart goes out to him.
I same, especially because all he wanted to do was eat the rich.
Just eat the rich.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to bust a man's chops for having his heart in the right place. I will not. I will not. His methodology was questionable, but
heart was in the right place.
Heart was in the right place. That's all that matters. But Graham gets away. So Graham escapes. He's wandering through the Sorrowful Court. Two things I don't know. All right, first off, I don't know why I'm unable to say Sorrowful Court.
Sorrowful.
I slip into a speech impediment every time it's Sorrowful Court. It's so difficult. So he finds out two main important things about the Sorrowful Court. One, it's huge. This is not like a keep.
Yeah.
It is enormous. And two, it's basically abandoned. There's hardly anyone around. So at least he doesn't have to sneak too deftly, for what he's trying to do. He can just, make his way around. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So he's doing that. And eventually he finds a room. It's kind of like a plush courtroom kind of thing with all of these imps in it. And he recognizes them as the imps he's been following all this time. He sees where the fairy queen is, and he kind of starts psyching himself up. I love this part.
Yeah, because he's like slapping himself in the head. He's He's
like, I can do this. I can fucking, because he fucked up before, and he doesn't want a replay of that. So he's like, I can fucking do this. I can beat this guy's ass. And so by the time he finally psychs himself up enough, he is grabbed from behind by a giant. A different giant this time, and that's where we end that chapter. Chapter 20 opens with Graham meeting Dunstan, not the one who checks in. This is a giant, and he is the old, he's the king here, and it's very interesting the way they treat him, because I thought it was really funny, because what you find out is that the imp Kudzu, what is it? Kuzku. Yeah. It's like he sees him as his best friend, because he was the reason that he found this court.
Right.
He's the reason that he's where he is, and he sees him as his best friend. Graham is trying to explain to the king, because the king seems kind of reasonable. He's trying to explain to him, like, people are dying out there. My family could die. The fairy court is dying. It ain't great. And Cusco is like, not Cusco, sorry. The Dunstan is like, oh, that's not good. And so he's like, oh shit. Okay. Like, we got something good here. Like, I could do some diplomacy and make this happen. Unfortunately, Cusco is like just all over that. And he's just like, no, the guy's.
Yeah. He knows the exact strings, like buttons to push, strings to pull, all that stuff.
And he's manipulating him, telling him, and finally he tells him, like, Graham's using magic. He's using magic against you. And magic, as they point out, is forbidden in the Sorrowful Court. I keep doing that.
Sorrowful. Homestar wanna.
Homestar. Oh man, pop.
Oh man.
Oh man.
Homestar.
Oh God, I love Homestar Runner so goddamn much.
Checking emails.
So he is. Yeah, he tells him, you gotta leave. You can't stay here. And the Empress like, but we gotta make sure though. We gotta make sure this is permanent. And so we're gonna call on the Slizzard.
Getting Slizzard.
Like, the Slizzard. Yeah. And I was like, it's like the Slizzard. Okay. All right. Okay. Slizzard. Right. So they come in and they've got this little box, and it's actually a hilarious scene. They come in with this tiny little box and they open the box and jump back and nothing happens. And Graham's like, what the fuck is going on? And this tiny little lizard crawls out, and it's actually kind of cute. That's adorable.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't see what you guys are. And at one point, the lizard seems to come towards the imps, and one of the imps freaks the fuck out and takes a chair and starts smashing it between him and the lizard to keep it from getting closer. It's like you're getting a lot of to bring up Holy Grail again. You get a lot of like bunny rabbit, monster kind of vibes,
right? And
it's great.
So they start popping bottles on the ice.
Yeah,
like a blizzard,
like a slizzard.
When we drink, we do it right. Getting slizzard. Continue.
Like a G6.
Now I'm feeling so fly. Yeah, like a G6.
Yeah, like a G6.
Like a G6.
I don't know what a G6 is.
It's a plane.
Like a G6.
It's a private jet.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. That holds up. Graham is actually going to find out the definition of getting slizzard, actually, because this is actually not the exact same thing, but it's the same thing that happened with the last time that he dealt with a group of monsters that they thought were like, oh, these are fine. They're kind of cute. And they ended up having bone furniture. He picks up the lizard. It's kind of like crawling around him. And he goes, I don't see what what's the big deal? And as when he gets to deal, he kind of like passes out and ends up, basically, long story short, he realizes that he has traded places with the Slizzard. He is now a tiny little lizard creature, and the Slizzard, I guess, is inside his body. So he's seeing this huge version of himself, which that's going to fuck up your self-esteem from the wrong angle. Yeah. A nightmare. Absolutely not. So we come to chapter 21, and chapter 21 is largely Graham. Like he's running his ass off, trying to get away.
He's got to get away.
Yeah. And so and then we get a lot of Graham like getting used to his lizard body. He's kind of like testing out things, and he's like, okay, so if I walk this way, it does this. And like, it's actually really kind of cute and weird. Because on one hand, it's absolutely what you would do in these circumstances.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it's just it's so odd to see this written out in a piece of fiction.
Right.
But I got a real kick out of it.
He's like trying to figure out if he got any dumber. And
right. He's like, I seem to be okay. Like he's just testing himself out. It's very funny. And so he ends up in a room, and this is interesting. He's in this big room where this light is like shining in from all these different angles, all on this figure that's in the center of the room, and he's encased. Whoever this figure is encased by light to the point where Graham can't quite make out who he is. But he gets that impression, like he's like, I gotta save this guy, I gotta free him. And he also gets the impression he's like, the imps and the giant don't have anything to do with this. They are not smart enough to be fucking with magic like this. This is this is way out of their league. But he's also kind of like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, because he's still a tiny lizard. And as if to emphasize that point, he sees a moth, freaks out, gets to a certain angle, and fires his tongue out to grab the moth and eat it.
Yeah.
And very happily chows down on the moth, because Graham's still friggin' hungry at this point.
Right.
And that's how we end this chapter. And that's how we're going to end this section of the book. Yeah. Lizard Graham eating a moth. Yep. I love that. So, Kevin, what do you think so far?
It's a lot of fun. I mean, there's a lot of fun little stuff happening in this book. I mean, there's the whatever, those bunny monsters, porg monsters, whatever they were.
Yeah. The laburnum or whatever.
Laburnum. They're like, hold on, I'm gonna let right now. Yeah. So yeah, I'm loving it so far. It's fun. It's, lighthearted romps through the areas outside of Daventry.
Yeah. It's fun, and honestly, I think I'm extra charmed by it so far, just in the sense that I think this is probably one of the best ones we've read in terms of knowing the source material.
Right.
Like, this just feels like King's Quest, which was a problem with the last one.
Right.
So I'm still really impressed by it. I'm liking it.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, that brings us to the final and most important question. Kevin, what are you playing?
Ooh, okay. So I noticed that a few of the Castlevania collections were on sale for
oh my God, I bet they were so cheap.
Yeah, I popped. It was the anniversary, the Advance, and the Dominus collection. Got all those. So I've been playing one of the games in the Dominus collection, the one with what's his face, the guy with the white hair.
Alucard?
No. It's like set in 2035.
I have no idea.
It's set in the future.
That one's out of my league.
They're fun. They're fun games. Really enjoying them. But the main thing I want to talk about is Rise of the Golden Idol.
Yes.
Which I picked up. It is so I would say it's really good. And it's a definite, in terms of like the art style, it's the same art style, but in terms of like the way it's animated is better than the first one. There's like more depth, and it's almost like there feels like almost 3D at times. It is hard. I was finishing a case before we got on the call today, and I was just like, I was like 98% of the way, and I just couldn't. A lot of it, it's one of those games I just need to break down and get a notebook, because there's a lot of stuff that you're just holding so much information in your head otherwise, in order to make the connections between, okay, now this person is this person, and this person is actually this person, despite having a thing that comes from this person. You know what I mean?
In the first one, I was literally drawing pictures of their faces so I could help in my notebook to help me remember that shit.
Yeah, it is. It's tricky stuff. So I beat the first 3 cases. I want to say, like, the prologue and the first 3 cases, and now I'm on for the first chapter, and now I'm on the second chapter. Which is it like really ramped up right away in the second chapter. So yeah, if you haven't played Case of the Golden Idol, I would recommend going back and doing that before you play Rise of the Golden Idol. I think they're both great games. Case of the Golden Idol was, I think, one of my games of the year a couple of years ago. I can actually pull
really
it up.
Damn good. It was really good.
I feel like I have my 2020 list somewhere. Now I don't have it written out on. I don't have it separated out on Steam. But yeah, no. Case is really damn good. Rise so far is just fantastic. Yeah, and other than that, I mean, UFO 50, a little bit of Vampire Survivors, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I started playing Neva and EVA, which is like a.
Is that the Baba Yaga thing, or am I thinking of something else?
I think you're thinking of something else. This is you play basically like you're almost like a little rogue or knight type person who has a dog. And you're just kind of going through it's sort of like a cinematic platformer, but with more action.
This. Okay. Yeah. Oh, this is gorgeous.
Neva.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's but yeah, that's what I've been playing. How about you? What have you been playing?
Oh, I am currently just completely addicted to Demolition in UFO 50. I'm so close to completing it, but I get so overwhelmed. I'm really not great at patterns, and this game is proving it.
Right.
But it's just quite enjoyable and really easy to just go, all right, just one more game of it over and over again. So I'm stuck on that one in the same way that I was stuck on Grimstone before, that I'm just going to be playing this one until I finish it. And then we're going to go to another game that will take over my life.
Right.
On Thanksgiving, I loaded up Blood Bowl 3 and played some Blood Bowl 3 to get into the spirit.
Sure. Wasn't Blood Bowl 3 the one that was like didn't have great reviews when it first came out?
Yeah, and it's slowly built up. It's not as strong as the first two, I think. And a lot of that is because it's still like trying to pull that freemium shit. It's it's got like the ladder you can climb, and you have to pay for each season for blah blah blah. It's stupid. But it was quite enjoyable for a single game to get back into it. Just for it was a beautiful fall day, and I was like, I would like to play football and kill things. So that's that.
Yeah.
I think the newest thing though, I did play another demo, and this was recommended by a friend of the pod. It's called The Edge of Allegoria. Have you seen this, Kevin?
No, I haven't.
This is really, you might get a kick out of this. It's really interesting. It's got a Game Boy feel. It's got the green color scheme and everything. Very old school turn-based RPG.
Sure.
It's fight mechanics. It looks like Pokemon. But you never what do you call it? You never like capture / enslave pets to do your bidding. You're doing all the fighting. I think one of the more interesting aspects of the game is that when you get a weapon or a piece of equipment, like armor or something like that, you use it, and while you're using it, you're gaining mastery over it. And then when you master it, you can just you've got everything you could get from it. So it you absorb it into you.
Got it.
So there's no disadvantage of just buying everything at the shop.
Right.
Every weapon you just and each weapon has a different kind of special attack, and by looking at the different special attacks, you can kind of string things together. It's fun. It has this kind of shitty attitude. One of the humor aspects of it is that it's just like it cusses a lot, and
sure, yeah.
When there's and it's not. I'm not going to say it's not funny. It can be very funny,
right?
But it kind of claps itself a little on the back too much.
Sure, yeah.
With it, I'm not a prude. I don't mind cussing. Anyone's listening to the show knows that. It's just, it doesn't equal a joke. And these guys seem to think it does. And then around the time I stopped playing the demo, you're about to go into a village and you meet this guy outside, and he starts talking about how the people in this village are so rude and they're so they just cuss and they say things that hurt my feelings and and it's very edgelord
Right.
bullshit. And then he's run out, he's lost his stick, he finds another stick and shoves it up his ass, and it's very it's stupid, and it's the thing. I don't mind some rude humor, that doesn't bother me. It's sometimes done well,
Right.
the game is fun enough. It's interesting. It's worth a look. I don't know how deep I would get into it, but I will say that I found myself falling into it very, very easily with the demo. So I think that's definitely worth taking a look at.
Yeah, it comes out in a couple of days.
Yeah, it's a little edgelordy.
Sure.
But it's not so bad. They're not. They're not talking about gamer gators or anything, as far as I know, anyway.
Worth
games.
Worth investigating.
That is absolutely worth investigating.
Yeah. I noticed that like on one of the screenshots, there's an attack that is just called Ezekiel 25:17.
Hold on. Yeah, that's they do a lot of that. Like in the fights, they'll just have random references. It's like before a fight starts, you'll get a text box that just says like, now time for the old ultra violence and something. Yeah. They just do a lot of references.
Right.
It's a very Family Guy kind of humor, which I have some patience for. Not all the patience in the world,
sure,
but some. I don't know. I think it's interesting. It looks like it could be going somewhere with this, because the first boss battle is with this goblin king, and you find out, it's very clear that the village you live in the land used to belong to these goblins, and the goblins have been kicked off their land, and that's why they raid and attack the village.
Right.
And they're so it's interesting. There's something there if they keep going with it. I think it's at very least worth an hour or two to play the demo.
At least checking the demo out. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the more entertaining demos I've played this year.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, but that's it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that'll do it for tonight's episode. Thank you so much for listening. We are a Blue Sky family now.
Yes.
So go on over to Blue Sky, find me and Phil and the podcast. You can just search us up, Phil Makes Monsters, kevin.pixelitpod.com or pixelitpod.com on Blue Sky. They will get you to where you want to go.
Oh, yes.
So go ahead, check that out. We're also on Instagram at pixelitpod. So go ahead, follow us there for reminders that we have a new episode out. And as always, go to our Patreon, follow us there, join our Discord, etc., etc. It's all good. Jump in the line, rock your body in time.
Okay, I believe you.